All right, welcome back, kings and queens. Child, when I tell you, if it's not one thing, it's definitely another. Kanye West has been accused of sexual battery, y'all, by a personal assistant. Okay, he's also been accused of sex trafficking. And I have to say this, you know, I know the rhetoric and the notion amongst most men is there seems to be this phenomenon of taking black millionaires and billionaires down. I'm going to say this because I believe right is right, wrong is wrong, and fair is fair. Everybody can't be lying. Everybody can't be lying. And I have a lot of questions regarding the unusual sexual appetites of these black billionaires and millionaires in these industries, in these roles and positions in Hollywood, sports, media, entertainment. What the hell, what in the Sodom and the Gomorrah is going on? We gonna talk about it. Everybody can't be lying. Everybody can't be innocent. Everybody can't be guilty. Shit has gotten completely out of control, and we're going to walk it down and kind of go through some aspects of the lawsuit, okay? So if you're new to the channel, welcome. I am Queen Sheba. I cover a variety of y'all, hold on. I just messed up. All right. Listen, welcome everybody. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the palace. I am Queen Sheba. I cover a variety of hot topics specific to reality television. But most importantly, I hone in on the psychological and the behavioral traits of the Black experience.
Subscribe now.
Yep, you heard me. Kanye West has been accused of sexual battery and sex trafficking, and a new amended complaint, y'all, filed by his former assistant. As we begin to walk through some of the details that the assistant is outlining in her civil suit, I am going to speak to what I'm reading, and I'm also going to just share my thoughts openly, okay? Now, the first thing I thought is, how come nobody's going to the police? How come nobody's going to the police when it comes to sexual assault anymore? You know, there was once a time and a place when women, and I'm not saying she's lying. It just seems to be this new trend of these victims that are saying, I don't want to call the police. Just give me some money. That's different. That's different. And I can't help but to wonder. So I have a big question mark. That's the first thing. The second thing is, this isn't the first time that Lauren Pisciotta has sued Kanye West. This is actually an amended lawsuit, okay? Her first claim that she sued Kanye for was for wrong termination and sexual harassment in June of 2024. She came back, she spun the block, she's back here in July 2025. And I'm going to say, it may be safe to say after the Diddy trial, okay? Now, Kanye is being accused of sexual battery and sex trafficking. I want to say this to the lawyers, the legal aides, whomever, the lawyers, the attorneys that are filing these papers, these documents. And this isn't in defense nor against anybody. But I want to make sure what we don't do is slut out the term of sex trafficking so that it no longer holds a value. So that it no longer holds a value, right? For real victims. I want to make sure we're not using the term sex trafficking like we do with narcissism, where people are just like, you know what, child, everybody a narcissist, let you tell it. I also want to make sure we're not using a term like we do when it comes to racial bias. Everything is racial now, right? Where people are saying, oh, I wasn't let in because I'm black, or I wasn't done this because of this. No, sometimes it's just your bad behavior. But anywho, Lauren Pisciotta, she started working for Kanye West in 2021 during the making of his album Donda, and eventually became his personal assistant. Now, my initial question as I'm going through the documents, I would want to know, what were you hired for? I just like details. What were you hired for that you were brought on to do A, and then you got promoted to become his personal assistant? And like I mentioned before, she previously sued Kanye for wrongful termination and sexual harassment in June 2024. Now, here's my thing. I have so many questions. If you were being sexually assaulted, right? Why would you want to stay? And that's like the most heartfelt question, right? As a woman, why would you want to stay? And then as a woman, I also have so many questions regarding how are we raising our girls compared to how we love our boys? Because why is it that women, and we're starting to see this shift, right, in the room where women are no longer deeming themselves as valuable and they're placing themselves sometimes in the line of danger. Why would any woman want to stay in a situation where she is being, these are questions, taken advantage of in the workplace? In the second amended complaint obtained by Variety magazine, y'all, I'm sorry, by Variety, she alleged that Kanye orally raped her without her consent and coerced her into complying with his sexual demands by making false promises. Listen to this, about the advancement of her career. Let me read it again. In her amended complaint, keep in mind the initial one, where she sued the rapper for wrongful termination and sexual harassment. Now she's saying he orally raped her without her consent and he coerced her into complying with his sexual demands by making false promises about the advancement of her career. For those of you that are not familiar, I recently attended the Diddy trial in New York for 5 weeks in the courtroom. And one thing I've come to learn from being in that courtroom, which is a fact, civil suits like this, you must include sexual abuse and or sexual assault in order for it to get through the door of the courtroom, whether it's true or not, right? You can't stop somebody from suing you. So I have a lot of questions. Um, it went from sexual harassment to sexual assault. So my first question as a judge and or a jury to her attorney would be, how come, or is there a reason you didn't include these intricate details in your first filing of the civil lawsuit? My second question, just me on the outside looking in, is why would a woman stay? And why does a woman feel that if there's a promise about the advancement of my career, then I would be willing, or maybe I can stomach and or comply with your sexual demands? Accountability on both sides. I'm not saying that she's lying. I'm not saying that he's innocent. I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm just saying, my question is, how did we get here? How did we get here? So where there's no longer any accountability on the part of the woman, right? And we're not talking about children, where I would really like to see women have the attitude of, I don't give a damn about your raggedy ass job. My body is worth more than being a freaking personal assistant. And it ain't no amount there is no amount of promotion and or profit, money, notoriety that could get me to stay. Kanye's representatives have responded to the amended complaint and they claim that the accusations are absurd and outlandish. I don't know if I believe that, Kanye. I don't know if I believe that, because I was in that courtroom and I know that you were allegedly in the hotel room in that Freakoff January 2024, right? With your wife and other celebrities in the room, watching a woman engage in sexual activity with a man. And so I know you have a dark appetite for things that may not necessarily be normal to us. So I don't know if her allegations are absurd and outlandish. The courts are no place to indulge delusions and mental disturbances, says a Yeezy spokesperson in a statement. Now, I think that's a bit of a stretch considering it's being rumored, and I'm going to say rumor because I've never seen his medical records. I'm going to say rumored. I think that's somewhat of a low blow to say that the court has no place to indulge in delusions and mental disturbances, considering Kanye has been labeled crazy and mentally unstable. And his spokesperson went on to say, "We stand ready to annihilate Miss Pisciotta's tall tales before a jury. An exoneration so inevitable that even she, lost in her fog of fantasy, must surely see it coming." You know what? This is not a rap battle. Take your ass in front of a jury if you want. You may not fare like Diddy did, because I can say this: they've been coming for Kanye for quite some time. They've been coming for Kanye for quite some time. And I'm going to tell you this: grace is like a parking meter, okay? Eventually, your time is up. Eventually, your grace will run out. The full list of accusations Pisciotta makes and the updated complaint includes hostile work environment, sexual harassment, assault, battery, sexual battery, sex trafficking, failure to prevent harassment, discrimination, and retaliation, gender discrimination, stalking, false imprisonment, promissory estoppel, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I can see it being a hostile work environment to work with Kanye. I can see that. I can see sexual battery if you're being forced to watch sexual activities, right? And you can't leave. I can see that. Retaliation, maybe. Discrimination, what discrimination? Because he prefers white women. So, what type of discrimination are we talking about? If anything, I could see a black woman claiming discrimination. And according to her documents saying Ye subjected Miss Pisciotta to obscene comments about her body, demanded she wear tight-fitting clothing, groped her on a regular basis, forced her to watch Ye perform sexual acts with other women, sent her sexually explicit pictures, and demanded she do the same, and repeatedly demanded that she join his sexual encounters, which she refused. There may be some credibility to this, okay? Because we know, Kanye, your palate. Your palate. You have a very sophisticated palate for unusual activities. On one occasion, Ye attempted to vaginally penetrate Miss Pisciotta with his fingers. On another occasion, he orally raped her without her consent. Both assaults occurred during the course of Miss Pisciotta's employment. She also alleges that West offered someone the opportunity to have sex with her in exchange for allowing him to have sex with their significant other. The lawsuit notes that West allegedly notoriously offered women as sexual gifts to men. Do you believe that? For those of you that are tuned in, do you believe there's this thing in Hollywood where these men have these godlike complex and they feel like whether you work for me or not, you're mine. We're talking like the handmaid's tale, and I'm just going to auction you off. I'm going to pass you around in exchange for me getting the first right of refusal to somebody else's spouse. My other question in court would be, or just inquiring minds wanting to know, why would he feel like he could offer you off in exchange for sex when he has Bianca? I would want to know more about the relationship that they have, right? From his perspective. We're hearing her perspective, but there's two sides to every story, and then there is the truth. The complaint alleges that sex trafficking occurred because West recruited and enticed plaintiff by making fraudulent promises of career advancement in exchange for plaintiff's. Hold on. I don't know how to say this word. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Hold on. At least I'm being honest. Hold on, y'all. All right, we're back. We're back in full effect. I had to take a second, so let me start all over. The complainant alleges that sex trafficking occurred because West recruited and enticed plaintiff by making fraudulent promises of career advancement in exchange for plaintiff's acquiescence to Ye's sexual contact and used force and coercion to obtain compliance with his sexual demands by I don't know, engineering A fear that refuses Ye's desire. So this is very complicated. This is like a huge sentence. But a fear that refusing Ye's desires would be met with serious consequences such as public humiliation, online harassment, termination, retaliation, and violence. Let me go back and read. Let me look at this because I have so many freaking questions. Let me ask y'all something. And this is a serious question. Do y'all look at being a woman as being as a disability? And once we come into contact with a man, we no longer have the power, the wherewithal, or the courage to walk away and say, I don't give a damn, not me. I'm not doing this, not today. Do women become completely subdued and helpless around men? And I'm asking because I see this devious behavior that's happening, but I also see this emerging of a lack of accountability. Do I believe some aspects of it? Absolutely, yes. But there has to be some dialogue around when does it become a woman's responsibility to say, I don't want your promises. There is nothing you can do to talk me into exchanging my body for a pay raise. Because once I enter into that engagement with you, that's a form, if we're not careful, or could it be considered a form of prostitution? Question mark. Pisciotta's lawyers allege that after Pisciotta continued to refuse West's sexual advances, he terminated her employment in the fall of 2023. Okay, maybe that's true. For 2 years, he tried. She refused his advancement. Now that makes sense. Okay. Some of it makes sense because it has to make sense. However, even after she was fired, the complainant alleges that West moved into her same apartment complex and, on one occasion, forcibly grabbed Miss Pisciotta by the throat after she moved to Florida to escape him. The complaint alleges that West harassed Pisciotta by falsely reporting non existent emergencies and incidents, as well as requesting bogus services and deliveries to her residence. She claims that this alleged harassment worsened after her original lawsuit was filed in June 2024, escalating to a practice called swatting. This includes reports of child abuse. Okay, I know what they're talking about, and murder. And PCOTA was not able to predict when and if law enforcement agencies would show up to her residence under the pretense of false emergencies. So swatting is where you kind of utilize the the authority of a law enforcement personnel to harass somebody, y'all. Okay. Let me go back because after she moved to Florida to escape him, the complaint alleges that West harassed her by falsely reporting. That can exist. We see that with YouTubers, right? So that's not too far fetched. Um, I just have a lot of questions. It- th- You know, she's demanding a trial by jury to seek general economic and punitive damages, including past and future lost earnings. My thing is this: if you owe the woman, pay her. If you terminated her and you didn't pay her upon termination, pay the lady what you owe her. Okay, period, point blank. That's just corporate America 101. If you're withholding any sort of pay, pay her. Let's go on to another aspect of the lawsuit. I was going to read the documents. It's very lengthy. I must wait and see where this trial goes before I get into the thick of it. Okay, so here's a more detailed outline from the Los Angeles Times, and this actually details the alleged sexual assaults, and it runs down a timeline, and I think that's important. Okay, Lauren Pisciotta has taken more legal action against the Grammy-winning musician a year after she sued him for sexual harassment and breach of contract, among other counts, in June. So, of course, she sued him first last year, followed up this year, spun the block on him. Okay. We know that in her complaint, she's alleging forced oral sex. She's also in the updated, amended complaint. She says she's actually claiming, she's like, well, you know what? Let me get into the thick of it. He not only forced me to perform oral sex on him. Now, keep in mind, we don't know until this goes to court. But one aspect I do want to reiterate to all of you that are tuned in, there has to be a claim of sexual assault in these civil lawsuits, whether it's true or not. And one thing we did learn, or I did learn in the Diddy case, that Banna, Cassie's good friend, claimed sexual assault, even when it was not true. Her lawyer put that in the civil suit. And although she knew it was not true, they moved forward with it anyway in her lawsuit against Diddy. So we're all learning together in real time. Yeah, so she came back and she said, he sexually assaulted me numerous times during my employment with him, and he engaged in sexual activities with employees at his Yeezy offices. Pisciotta also accuses the rapper, right? She accuses the rapper, give me 1 second, of stalking her after she filed her initial lawsuit. Uh, I believe there could be some truth to him engaging, right, in activity with employees. A lot of men do when they're not supposed to. Black, white, yellow, brown. And that's why you get your asses in trouble. And I feel no ways about it. Because if you lack dick discipline, then come what may. Legal representatives for Ye and his Yeezy brand did not immediately respond as of last Thursday or whenever. She has a 37-page complaint, y'all. And she doubles down on the claims from her June 2024 suit, but also details sexual assaults that allegedly occurred at a San Francisco hotel shortly after Ye hired her in 2021 to help with the creation, like I mentioned before. But what was your job? Why would Kanye, and I'm not disputing anything she's saying, I just have a lot of questions. Why would Kanye bring you on, of all people, to help with the creation of his album, Donda? What is it that you bring to the table that he needed you specifically to help him roll out this album? Because they're going to ask. They're going to nail her to the cross in the courtroom. For almost 2 years, Miss Pisciotta dedicated her life to Ye under the pretense that he would present her with pivotal opportunities. What happened to earning your spot? How do you walk into a job interview and somebody promises you the world without seeing how well you perform on the job? Is this a level of privilege as the world turns? So that they're going to have to clean that up from a legal aspect, because it doesn't make sense that he would hire you in 2021. Y'all, I'm just thinking out loud, and give you all of these promises without knowing what you were capable of, right? In real time. And I'm being fair on both sides. That doesn't make sense to me, but maybe that's just the world of Holly weird, okay? That he would present her with pivotal opportunities in the music and fashion industries at an even larger scale than any of her previous work, the lawsuit said. Despite Mrs. Pisciotta's unwavering dedication to her job, Ye continued to sexually harass her at every opportunity. You're going to have to say, now that I understand how these court proceedings work, her attorney is going to have to nail down specifically everything that she did. You can't walk into that courtroom amongst a jury of your peers, right? 12 jurors, 6 alternates, and just give this vague description of what you did. Otherwise, they're going to paint her as an opportunist. Pisciotta alleges that during her time working with Ye in San Francisco, he forcefully kissed her on the mouth, forcibly touched her genitals with one hand while stroking himself with the other, exposed himself, and forced his penis into her mouth, according to legal documents. Ye allegedly sexually assaulted Pisciotta another time in October 2023, according to legal documents, when they were en route to Paris from Los Angeles. The 48-year-old rapper requested Pisciotta come to his private room on his plane and demanded that she give him a hug. She refused, but Ye said he needed to speak with her and locked her in the room, where he allegedly retreated to his bed and began to masturbate. Pisciotta claims she was forced to remain in the room until someone opened the door from the outside. I have to pause. I believe Kanye's capable of doing that based on his egregious behavior. I believe that very well could have happened. But on the flip side of that coin, why is it that you can't get out that room until somebody on the outside opens the door? How would he get out the room if somebody on the outside has to open the door? Is there a reason I'm asking because they ask these questions in court, right? Is there a reason you just didn't unlock the door and walk the hell out? Or is that impossible? Because that door on that airplane, if it's a private jet, it's going to be entered into evidence as an exhibit. And they're going to look to see if there's a doorknob on the inside of that door. Is there a lock? Or is that the type of door that once you're in, you're stuck until somebody on the outside lets you in? I don't see that being the case as far as the door and the manufacturing of the door, because that would be a liability on the behalf of the manufacturer of the aircraft. You got to be able to get out in and out of doors in case of an emergency, right? So I would want to know the why she could not leave until somebody opened that door. The complaint also paints a disturbing picture of the inner workings and culture of the Yeezy offices. Let me just say this. I don't believe there was a positive culture. I think it's a very toxic culture. I think it's a very dark culture, right? Alleging Yee verbally assaulted Pisciotta and often used derogatory anti-Semitic slurs and demanded assistants and other employees draw swastikas in the workplace. Now, I do believe there's a possibility there could have been derogatory slurs, anti-Semitic. They could be playing on past behaviors, past reputation, past offenses. That part may be where you're kind of putting a little bit of 20 on 10. You know what? Let's just say that because he's been accused of it before. It's going to be believable. Nobody's going to doubt you with that. I think it's a very toxic culture, considering the fact. Let's continue. Earlier this year, Ye came under fire for placing a TV ad during the Super Bowl for a website selling t-shirts embezzled with hate symbols. But guess what? If he came under fire for it, so should the network because they sold him the slot. Where's the accountability? And that's what I'm talking about. Where's the accountability on the behalf of networks, on the behalf of women, on the behalf of men, on the behalf of record companies, labels? Where's the freaking accountability for everybody involved? So I don't really care about him coming under fire for placing a television ad if you accepted the money because you didn't give a damn neither. Super Bowl. Additionally, Yee openly performed sexual acts with women at the Yeezy office, the complaint said, adding that one of the women was his current wife, Bianca Sensori. Pisciotta's complaint also repeated previous allegations that Yee constantly messaged her about his sexual fantasies involving her, sending sexually explicit videos, photos, and memes. Ye, who in recent years has used his social media pages to spew hate. I told you. I didn't even know that sentence was coming. So that's easy. Let's add a little razzle dazzle to this lawsuit because he's done it before. It's believable. You will appear credible, whether it's true or not. That's it. Mm-mm-mm. So it says Ye, who in recent years has used his social media pages to spew hate, including anti-Semitic rants, posted on X earlier this year about his inappropriate workplace practices and numerous lewd posts mentioned in the complaint. Life is about using your position to fuck the baddest bitches possible, he said in one post. But is he really talking about workplace or is he talking about his status as a star, as an entertainer, as a rapper? That is very subjective, right? When we're talking about the legalities of it and using that to validate her claims of sexual assault, sex trafficking, and rape. That's all I'm saying. You can't really take that and break that down and prove that it's exactly related to workplace sexual assault. He could just be talking about the notoriety, utilizing his position to F the baddest bees possible. And let's be clear, the baddest bees also want to be with these entertainers. So it's not like they're going and dragging these women by their hair out of their homes. It works on both sides. It goes that way on both sides. These women, just as much, many of these women want to be with these men. That's all I'm saying. Other since deleted posts from Yee include I'm walking Me Too. I'm a walking Me Too, referring to the watershed Me Too movement, and I'm a big time perv. He just may be. Hell, let me tell you something. If you tell me something about yourself, I believe it. Who the hell am I to argue with you? If you tell me you're a pervert, guess what? You're a pervert in my mind. I don't give a damn if you delete a tweet too. So that's why I say it's highly possible that there was some sort of sexual battery. It's not too far fetched, right? Considering what this man has come out to say that he's done to his cousin, the type of life that he was exposed to as a child, the things that he enjoyed seeing as a perversion, demonic spirits of it all. Can we really get into it? So I believe there's a level or could be a level of truth in her civil lawsuit. But I also believe that just to secure the bag, there could be a little bit of 20 on 10. That's it. The complaint includes posts where uses misogynistic language and homophobic slurs and claims there is a difference between Me Too rapes and real rapes. He may have a point. He may have a point. Some people believe that. I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying that has been a huge discussion over the past, 6 months in social media debates. We see it at the Diddy trial. We see people that testimony of the witnesses in the Diddy trial, particularly the women that were key witnesses. When people would disagree or call out inconsistencies, they would be labeled Diddy supporters. They would automatically have a negative stereotype and or connotation placed upon them. However, you didn't see that on the side of people that wanted to crucify Diddy, right? There was no negative connotation. So it's almost like if you go against the grain, if you have questions, if you're calling out inconsistencies, right, of this quote unquote hashtag Me Too phenomenon, I don't know. Is there a point, or is grape to you? Is there real grape versus Me Too grapes? There's a lot we can go so far with this conversation and this topic, but though the complaint mainly concerns incidents that allegedly occurred during Pisciotta's Yeezy tenure, she said the rapper admitted to assaulting her in a 20 what? The rapper admitted to assaulting her in 2015 during a studio recording session in Santa Monica. Then why would you go work for him? Why would you go work for him? Y'all, I'm serious. That's a legitimate question. 6 years later, if he assaulted you, and I'm not saying he didn't, I just want to know where you are. Why would you put yourself in danger, in harm's way? Why would you go knocking on his door to save you as your employer when you've been in the industry for over 15 years? Pisciotta alleged that West's disturbing behavior did not end after she was terminated at Yeezy. She claims the rapper grabbed her by the throat and stuck his tongue in her ear. Yuck. When they saw each other at a concert in November 2022. Mm. He also allegedly moved into the same apartment complex. We talked about that, prompting her to move out of state. After moving to Florida, okay, we know about the swatting. Okay. That's where you kind of use 911 to harass people. You use 911 law enforcement entities, law enforcement personnel, and or individuals. She said that a hoax 911 report made in the hope of generating a large law enforcement response. Pisciotta uh, said officers arrived at her home to investigate reports of child abuse and murder. Pisciotta said she had also experienced a barrage of service workers, such as plumbers and food delivery workers, showing up to her door unannounced. But you got to prove that he did that. So, I've learned so much from being in that trial in New York, the Southern District of New York, the United States of America versus Sean Combs. You got to prove that. Otherwise, it's, can you directly tie? Could he have done it? Yeah. But can you directly tie it to him? Because the government had a hard time tying the arson claim to Diddy. So can you prove that it's him that called law enforcement? Can you prove that it was indeed Kanye West who ordered service workers, plumbers, food delivery workers to show up at your door unannounced? She further alleges she has received calls from people warning her to not pursue legal action against Jay. That's possible. Pisciotta is also suing for counts of assault, battery, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and other charges. She demands an unspecified amount in damages and wants a jury trial. Yeah, I expect to see more trials coming down the pipeline. I do. I'm going to just say this. Women, you got to start leaving. Being a woman is not a disability. Being a woman is not a disability. You are not rendered helpless. You can leave and still file your claim when you stay in exchange for a benefit economically, whatever it is, love, affection. You create blurred lines. You create doubt. You start to kind of get into this realm of where people may not believe you. It's better to be empowered, leave, file your lawsuit, as opposed to stay and allow these things to continue to happen in exchange for a benefit package.